is this? Joe Budden been fudging the business. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am Augustine Versace. This is Onell Media, and you are awesome. If you are here, you are the fam. Give me dap. Hi, I'm rocking with ya. Please like, subscribe, ring that bell notification so you'll be back every time I drop a video. Now, let's get into Rory and Mal having this little bit of a, we're not going to call it a podcast. We're going to call it a self-interview. We don't want to infringe in any type of, contract shenanigans. Anyway, so according to Rory and Mal, they were not the pawns. They were not Ponzi's. They were not the employees. They were actually profit partners. They get a percentage of everything that comes to the table. Now, this is where things get sketchy. I say this is where things get sketchy because, truth be told, I'm going to filter out everything that they said, and I'm going to give you guys the information that I feel really matters to this situation. So, point number one, they get a profit of everything that comes into the Joe Budden podcast for the podcast. Not for the entire network. When they say they wanted to see the numbers, they were trying to see the numbers for the podcast, not the entire network. Joe painted it as if they were taking food out of other people's mouths, which they might have been. And I put it to you this way. When the Joe Budden podcast started taking off and these contracts were made, there were a certain amount of people that were actually working at that time. They've added more people since then, but from a certain amount of money, those percentages that Rory and Mal get, Sony cool to Joe. Not to mention, they didn't argue with the fact that Joe may have overpaid them. Or, I'm not going to say they. Rory doesn't argue with the fact that Joe might have overpaid them. Thank you. Didn't ask for it. Was what he said. Mal feels as though they didn't get what they were owed. That's how Mal feels. Two. In the claims that they made, they said that there was an error made by Wealth Management, the company that was handling the money. There was an error made by them to the tune of $400,000. Joe got on Insta Live and said, who makes a $400,000 mistake? Joe, if this company made a $400,000 mistake, yes, Rory has every reason to not trust this company. For real, Rory has every reason not to trust this company. And still, he's saying that he didn't come to you as his mans and say, no, I feel like you're cheating me. No, he just said, hey, I don't fucking trust this company. I don't care what they do for a living. They fucked up once, they can fuck up again. And now it seems as though, yes, this is why it's about money, but it's not about money. You see, Joe, the second part here, second bullet point I want to make, Joe seems to be in the habit of overextending himself to compensate people what he feels is fair. If Joe feels like he wants to take care of you and it's fair to give you more money than what you've signed up for, Joe's going to do that. But Joe does that and it's at his discretion what your worth is. When your worth could be at the bottom, he can bring it up if he feels so. But does it work the opposite way? If he feels that you're getting paid too much, will Joe bring it down to compensate for what he feels you should be getting paid? As well as he's added these additional people. They have an additional team, and he has to pay these people out of the budget. Joe Budden, as a good businessman, And I can't tell Joe Budden what to do in business. He's at a level of business that I have not reached yet. But as a good businessman, and my thoughts as a good practice, it would be get your pride out of the way. It seems that Rory and Mal were willing to make the adjustments to their pay to compensate everybody, as long as things were being transparent. This word is getting thrown around so much between all of you, and it is clear as freaking day that nobody is being transparent or completely transparent. The third thing, when you say it's not about money, you have to be correct in that. Because at a point they said, hell, we didn't know anything about the Patreon deal. That's why we looked so freaking confused, because we didn't know anything about the Patreon deal. We didn't know it was going down. We don't know what numbers were being thrown, and we are percentage partners, so of course. But Rory told you, so he says, fuck my portion. I have money saved up. Fuck my portion. If everybody needs to get paid, everybody needs to get paid. Do what you will. They still gave him a split from the Patreon deal, and both Rory and Mal said it was an amazing amount of fucking money. So right, it wasn't about the money. On both sides, it is about the principle. But how both sides looks at the principle of what's going on seems to be the disconnect there. Nowhere in any of these conversations, even with Joe being mad, even with Joe's Insta Live with him explaining more how he felt, even with Rory and Mal coming out with their own hour-long sit-down explaining what happened, none of these three men sounds as if they hated each other. That's the part that hurts. Because we all bought into this friendship that these three guys had, and actually, if you want to be honest, like Parks was like the silent friend. He's not so silent anymore. Yeah, I think Parks' ass needs to be sitting front and center from now on. But as long as he's actually somewhat out of the frame, that may put him out of Joe Budden's vision for the podcast, and that might save his job. Look, it seems like Parks is the only person that's worked with Joe Budden long enough to know how Joe operates as a boss and as a partner in business, and he's playing his hand accordingly because it has made him pretty fucking rich. I'm just saying. Damn, where was I going? Oh shit. Yeah, so the three of these guys don't look like they're hurt over the money. And the money keeps coming up, but it really seems like three guys have lost a friendship that they really cared about. Which fucking sucks, man. That sucks to see. And three different guys, and there's three different perspectives. Even with Rory and Mal speaking together, they had different perspectives of how things went. Even sitting right across from each other. So I can see how the three of them can have a disagreement. Now, point number 4. Joe, you're fucking dead ass wrong. If they were percentage partners and you keep putting them up as employees, you are creating a narrative, and I fucking love Joe Budden, bro. Like, his music catalog, I'm one of the few people that I know 2 other people, literally 2 other people who are Joe Budden fans to the capacity that I am, that they actually listen to Joe Budden's music and like know his discography, right? So I am a Joe Budden fan, but Joe, you cannot paint this narrative as if it was on you to figure out what they need to get paid if they get paid a percentage, Joe. Come on, man. Stop talking to us like we fucking crazy. I've sat here and watched you for years pour out your heart on songs to women that you would then cheat on. Motherfucker, I know how this go. I know how Joe Budden operate. Makes me love you no less. Because I like all the eccentric shit that you do. It's just one of those things like boys will be boys. That's Joe being Joe. But we still love you. Fucking nuts, but we still love you. That's how the world treats Joe Budden, because that is how Joe Budden operates. Now, the last point that I'm going to get into from this situation is I didn't realize how much I loved Rory and Mal outside of Joe Budden until I saw Rory and Mal by themselves. The early days of the Joe Budden podcast, he had a different host. And in those early days, the dynamic was just weird. And Rory and Mal were not a tandem. They were not a two-piece. They were not a tag team when they joined up with Joe. But it helps. There have been other people on the show. And as a guest, they were cool, but there was never really that, we've got lightning in a bottle. Joe Budden seems to need two people to offset his one. And to me, that speaks to the greatness of Joe Budden. Joe Budden needs two personalities together to balance out his one personality. Give you an example. State of the Culture. I really like that show. But Remy Ma is like probably not as crazy as Joe, but as far as attitude towards how she handles people, Remy Ma is essentially female Joe Budden. So, two negatives make a positive, whatever. They canceled each other out in that show, State of the Union. But Jinx, and I can't, oh my God, and she was fucking beautiful, Joe. Scotty Beam. Jinx and Scotty Beam were kind of like young man, young female tag team that would come in and like pinch Joe from both sides. That is what I love. Like, Scotty Beam seemed to fucking hate Joe Budden, but you know what? It made for good content. Even when she would be so mad at Joe that she would rant about shit that made no sense. Or Jinx would just disagree because, hey, I'm college kid Jinx and fuck you, old man Joe. Like, that tandem of two people made that show interesting. When they moved Scotty Beam out, oh, Scotty Beam, you are fucking fine. Seriously, if you see it, you are fucking amazing, baby. But when they moved Scotty Beam, brought somebody else in, the dynamic just wasn't the same. Then they went into the pandemic, and as it seems to be, that is the end of the show. So, that's example number 2, wherein you needed a dynamic duo to offset the egomaniacal Joe Budden. Like, even in his own podcast, Joe Budden plays best as the villain. It just is what it is. The guy that people love to hate has made a living off of people loving to hate him. Now, he brings in Ice and Ish. Yet again. Ice and Ish know each other. He brought Ice and Ish in as a team. Now, if he would have just brought Ice in and then brought Ish in later, or vice versa, I don't think the impact of them interacting with Joe would have been so accepted, because we missed that, hey, they're going to double team on Joe. We missed that. Like, we need that as fans. So that's just an observation that I made. I really hope that Rory and Mal can do something together. Even if, because this is my thing, it doesn't feel like either of them is really done with podcasting. And I feel like, oh, one thing, Rory said for the Rory said for the SoundCloud, that's actually his email that set up the SoundCloud for the Joe Budden podcast. So I guess that kind of debunks what Joe said about them not being there from the beginning. But hey, it is what it is. Or Rory not being there from the beginning. So that is what it is. And yeah. Oh man, I'm sorry. But I threw myself off my own train of thought, bro. That is fucking crazy. So I'm just going ahead. I'm tired, man. It's Sunday. It is what it is, man. Hey Joe, put Remy Ma and Jinx on the Joe Budden podcast. I like them better than Ish and Ice. Ish and Ice should have their own podcast. Oh yeah, okay. So Rory and Mal should have their own podcast. And this is what I propose. Joe Budden, if you're the boss, be a real boss. Rory and Mal should be able to have a podcast. And if they are not on the JBP, well, does their contract allow for them to have their own podcast within the Joe Budden network? They don't have to deal with you. Their lawyer can talk to your lawyer. Their managers can talk to your manager. They can do their own thing, finish out their contract. Finish out their contract with the Joe Budden network and have their own podcast on the Joe Budden network. And I do believe that situation that you were talking of, your second show that would be as big as the Joe Budden podcast for the Joe Budden network, that would take everybody to the promised land, you have that show. They fulfill their contract, and if you're really looking after your mans in them, even if y'all can't work together, give them that. And let them get their splits from that, which is nothing. So if they still want a podcast, they have to podcast once again for nothing. And the great Joe Budden wins. So guys, tell me what you think in the Guys, tell me what you think in the comments. Also, like, subscribe, ring that bell notification, because they're not going to tell you if you don't ring the bell notification, man. And as usual, you are family. Bring it in. Give me a hug. Come on. Yeah, there we go. All right. I'm rocking with ya. And, yeah, check out this playlist right here. As usual. Peace. I love you guys.